most revered Supreme Justice, Supreme Godfather Shiv Baba, and dear sisters and brothers, speaking about the conference, why is it essential to have a conference on justice for peace and happiness, or in the morning, as I said, spirituality for peace and happiness? I would like to cite one true instance how justice or spirituality plays a vital role in justice delivery system. It was years back when a person named La Guardia, who was the former mayor of New York, he presided in the police court, and a very old and feeble person was brought before him. And the charges were that he had stolen a loaf of bread from a shop for his survival. And the pattern and the justice system followed there is that only the police is heard. And the judge, immediately when the submissions were made, the judge looked at the old person who was very, very old and literally bent and feeble, and he said, "Well, dear gentlemen, law takes its own course without any exceptions. And because you have stolen a loaf of bread, I shall now have to punish you, and I impose a fine of $10 on you." The old man, who did not have even 10 cents, was totally dumb and shocked, and he started shivering in the court. At this, the judge said, "Well, I'm aware you don't have $10 to be deposited in the court, and therefore on your behalf I shall deposit this $10. And immediately the judge removed $10 and deposited in the court. And he further said that the matter doesn't end here. I shall now have to remit the fine which I have paid for the old man, and I impose a fine of 50 cents on each one of you present in the court who are gazing at me for staying or living in a town where an old and a disabled person has no other option but to steal a loaf of bread for his survival and for survival of his family." And there the pattern is a hat is moved, and every person who was present in the court had to deposit 50 cents. The total amount was $47.50, which was immediately paid to the old man, who left the court very peacefully and happily. I mean, a unique way of dispensation of justice. And it is a true story. So it's indeed a moral lesson for each one of us who are involved in some manner in this justice delivery system. And another true incident is of a boy named Alexander Duff. In a missionary meeting at Scotland, the meeting was for the purpose of collecting donations for the people who were really suffering for want of clothes and money and food and so on. And it so happened that a declaration was made that whatever you desire to donate, well, there will be a basket moved and you can, put something in the basket. And the basket was moved from person to person. There was a young little 10-year-old boy, very, very young. And he was there standing, and when the gentleman who was moving with the basket reached him, the young little boy said, "Sir, please, could you lower down the basket a little bit?" And the gentleman said, "Well, what should he be having to donate? But nevertheless, for his satisfaction, let me lower down the basket." The 10-year-old boy by name Alexander Duff, with a folded hand, he just stepped into the basket saying that I have nothing to offer, but I offer myself for the noble cause of humanity. indeed a great example as to how, one can give peace and happiness to other. Is it by way of justice, as we had seen the previous example, or is it by way of a spiritual background where a person has a desire to bring about peace and happiness in society? In the previous session, very categorically emphasis was laid on three precious words within the Constitution: justice, liberty, and equality. It's social, economic, and political justice, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, and equality of status and of opportunity. If I have to introspect, or if I have to ask a question to any one of you, how much do we live up to these three words? Well, I think we all have an answer. To what extent are we be able to live up to these three words? I will reserve my views for another session which we have tomorrow. But when we speak of crimes, the wrongs happening, be it a civil wrong, be it a criminal offense, an offense is considered as more serious than a civil wrong. And we read in the newspapers every day, crimes committed day in and day out. Without going to, what are the punishments? Because in India, we have still retained capital punishment or death sentence. Is it really justified? Has it really, after retention of this particular sentence, has it really brought peace and happiness in the society? Are crimes not committed? Well, there are different theories which all of us have studied. It's deterrent theory, preventive theory, retributive theory, reformative theory, and compensation theory. Mahatma Gandhi believed in reformative theory, and when he said, hate the crime and not the criminal. And here is where the theory goes to justify saying, don't give harsh punishment to a person who may have committed knowingly some offense also, because a crime is committed because of the clashes between the temptation and motive of a person, the character and motive of a person. Either the temptation of motive is stronger, or the restraint imposed by character is weak, and therefore he commits a crime. Instead, reform him. At times when I address my students, and very categorically they ask me, what are your views about imposition of death sentence on Afzal Guru and Ajmal Kasam? Well, I said, life is given by God. We are no authority to take away life of a person. And when the Constitution of India guarantees us a precious right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution, which just runs into one sentence, that no person shall be deprived of his right to life and personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Let the retributive purpose be served. Let the person undergo a life imprisonment, and these are precisely the views expressed by late Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer sir and late Justice P.N. Bhagwati sir. Eradicate and totally abolish death sentence. But India has not done so till date. Can we really think of peace and happiness when we say that yes, we will follow a proper process of law and it's hanging to death. We still follow the practice of hanging. And here is where, it's not that the crime ratio has fallen down by retention of death sentence. It's rather the National Crimes Record Bureau report reveals that there is a sharp increase in rate of crimes, each of the offenses which fall under the Indian Penal Code 1860. And that this is, I think, which carries a great significance when we are discussing something about peace and happiness. With these advances in science and technology that we have made, we hear of genetic engineering, we hear of cloning, we hear of IVF, We hear of surrogacy, we hear of many other such issues where not only just legal but moral, social, ethical issues are involved. Is there peace on this earth? With the innumerable international laws and the national laws that we have in its place, whether have we been able to achieve peace and happiness? And therefore, where is peace? Are we to find out elsewhere where is peace? Baba tells us that you cannot find peace because it's right under your nose. So you need to realize that it's existing within us. Happiness exists within us, and very, very aptly did Justice Korean Joseph say, it comes out by way of giving happiness to others. But then the mindset doesn't change. And here is where I think I will end up by again a true incident which stands as a moral lesson to all of us. There was a great Confucius scholar who was more than 80-year-old, and he was known for his knowledge and intellect. And he was very, very famous for his knowledge and intellect. But one fine day he got a news from somewhere that a new doctrine or theory has evolved which is deeper than the knowledge that he possesses. And that disturbed him tremendously. And he walked miles and miles together to go to the Zen school. And he went to the Zen school and met the Buddhist monk and asked him what was that doctrine. And the Buddhist monk said, well, it's nothing, it's just a simple sentence that to avoid doing evil, do as much good as you can. At this, the Confucius scholar got very, very agitated. And he said that, are you mocking at me? Do you think that despite my advanced age, I have walked miles and miles together to hear something which even a 3-year-old child knows by heart? Very, very softly did the Buddhist monk say, true, sir. It's true that a child of 3-year-old can by heart these words, that to avoid doing evil, do as much good as you can. Look at this and please consider this, that something which a 3-year-old child can mug up and by heart speak out, it is so very difficult for an 80-year-old man to live up to. And this is precisely the reason why we have no peace and happiness on this earth planet. Laws haven't been able to get us peace and happiness. The innumerable, profound peace, the United Nations mechanism hasn't been able to get us peace and happiness. It's something which is dwelling within each one of us. And we therefore need to ignite, that light in the soul. And that can be done only when you realize your true self, what your true self is. Knowing that, okay, it's not just a physical body. My own self is not just a physical body. It's the soul which is immortal. It's only when you practice it in a daily routine, step by step, when we realize that peace and happiness both are maximum dwelling within each one of us. And therefore, very aptly, this particular conference which is conducted in Cochin is justice for peace and happiness, or you may call it spirituality for peace and happiness. Rest of my views I reserve for tomorrow. Thank you very much, and Om Shanti.